for, honest to God, like 30 years. And he has seen me through my 27 boxes of ashes, and in a very humane and wonderful way. This is the kindest man maybe on the planet. And he's awesome too. He's also brilliant. And I've been lucky to have him as my veterinarian, and I shopped like crazy. I probably went to every vet in the city until I landed at Central Park Animal. I even worked for him for a little bit, but that wasn't such a good idea because I was too prone to telling people, hey, get your hands off that dog, or your kid's bothering that cat, or whatever. So it was, I didn't do them any favors, basically. But Dr. Latson is also the fish doctor, right, at the aquarium?
Yep.
Yeah, which is really cool. And Katie told me, Katie used to be his one of his administrators, administrative assistants. She told me that you are kind of like a world-renowned fish guy now, that you've been like out doing lectures and stuff.
Well, I've developed an expertise on water for marine mammals, actually. So not so much fish. So.
Gotcha. That's right. I should have differentiated. Well, he's also very humble, so you'll see that as we go along. So basically, we're here tonight because he's going to talk to us about some canine diseases. Is that correct, Doctor?
Yes.
Okay. So do you want to just go into it, or do you want to start, or am I asking you? I have some questions to ask him as well.
Well, why don't I go into what happened a few years back?
Okay.
All this COVID stuff with humans has brought back experiences that we had some years ago when the disease we can now call parvovirus first was found in the world. And it started back in 1976, were the first cases. Nobody knew what it was. It was a new disease, very serious of dogs. And over a period of a few years, it spread to the whole world. Every dog in the world probably got exposed. And it took a while. Dogs don't travel by jets, and maybe there wasn't as much travel back at that time anyway. And so it took a while, but it finally got to Buffalo, where my wife and I had just started a practice. And when parvovirus came to Buffalo, it was awful. We had to shut down the practice. We couldn't have any dog come into the practice. Parvovirus is a really tough virus. It lives on the ground for a long time. So if a dog has diarrhea, that dog could have not been there for 3 or 4 weeks, and your dog comes by and picks it up. So it's really scary. And so it was awful. We had at one point had 9 dogs in people's houses with IV fluids hanging from a closet rod. And I would just go around to each house and check and make sure everything was okay. Because we couldn't have them come into the hospital, because then there would be contamination, and the next dog that came in would get it. So it was quite a thing. And all the dogs that we treated in the people's houses survived, but there were a lot of dogs that didn't. It was a lot of dogs over the world died. And it also affects wolves and foxes and coyotes and all kinds of wild dogs as well. So I thought the parallel was really interesting in how a disease that starts somewhere gradually spreads and spreads until the whole world is affected, kind of like it's happened with COVID. Wow. And there were things we could do. We could isolate dogs, just not let dogs go out of people's homes so they didn't meet any other dogs. That helped. They couldn't wear masks. It didn't help because it was basically spread in diarrhea. So there really was only, isolation was the only protection. After a time, they figured out that it was very similar to a disease of cats, feline panleukopenia, which is also a parvovirus. And once that was discovered, we started to use feline vaccines for that disease in dogs, and it did help. It wasn't a perfect vaccine, but it did help to slow the spread. And then eventually, good vaccines came, and then we could start to have our dogs go to the park and things like that. Once they were vaccinated, then they were pretty safe. And so that's what ended that epizootic. And epizootic is like an epidemic, but for animals. And
Wow.
I think that parvovirus would qualify as a panzootic instead of a pandemic, a panzootic, because it went around the whole world. All the dogs in the world were affected. Really, it went to
Can
the Arctic.
humans get it?
Humans can't get it, but there is a parvovirus that humans do get. It's not as serious a disease as the parvovirus that dogs get. And fortunately, we don't have to worry about getting parvovirus from dogs. So that's wonderful.
I'll say. So what happened that ended this horrible situation that was going on?
I think it was
Epizootic.
the epizootic. I think it was the vaccines. The vaccines. Plus, a lot of dogs that were susceptible died. There was kind of a selection pressure. There's some breeds that are really susceptible, like Rottweilers and some other breeds were quite susceptible, and a lot of those dogs died. Even when they got the best treatment, they didn't make it. But I think the vaccine is really the thing. But it's still around. It's still around. We still have to vaccinate for it, or dogs get sick.
Have there been other epizootics in dogs?
Well, there have actually. Back in the 1700s, there was a new disease of dogs that was seen in South America, and we now call it canine distemper, or we also call it morbillivirus. That's the type of virus it is. And it started they first saw it in Peru, and then it spread to Europe, and it's come back to North America, and it's still around. Canine distemper is a problem for dogs still, although we don't see it very much because so many dogs are vaccinated. It can also affect other animals. Like recently, they found that it's affecting the tigers in the northern tigers in China are affected by it.
No.
So they're trying to vaccinate the tigers.
It says that it started in cattle. Is that correct?
Morbilliviruses are a class of virus that the original morbillivirus infection was rinderpest, which is a disease of cattle. And we think at some time in the past that it mutated so that it could infect people, and that's measles virus. That's where the measles came from. And then we think, but it's not really sure because that was a few hundred years ago, that maybe the humans actually brought it and it mutated and was able to go to dogs. So we think that canine distemper may have come from human measles. A long time ago, we used to use, we don't see much distemper now, so we're not as worried about it as we were, but we used to use a human measles in the puppy vaccines, human measles vaccine in the puppy vaccines, because the first time that we gave the vaccine, there might be enough antibodies from the mother that the vaccine wouldn't work. And so that's very closely related.
Wow, another terrible thing humans do to dogs.
Well, yeah. But we're kind of a team, so if it happens to one, it happens to the others.
So it says here that there are significant morbillivirus diseases in seals, dolphins, and other aquatic animals. Do you run into that at the aquarium?
Well, we try not to. We whenever we have an animal that might come to the aquarium, we have them tested for morbilliviruses. But there have been significant mortalities where a lot of seals or other aquatic mammals have died, and we think that the morbillivirus may be one of the causes. Morbilliviruses are very, very, very contagious. Like the measles virus is the most contagious human virus, probably. If one person comes into a room of 40 people, all 40 will probably get exposed. It's maybe the same in other animals as well. So it's quite broad. Well, all these viruses move around; they change. Their genetic material is able to modify because it's not always copied correctly, and then we get new ones that may have different capacity, and that's how we get new viruses.
Wow. Bailey, I'm getting a message down here from Kathy Kalinowski that she wants the link. I'm not sure what to do with that because if I can't cut out of this in the middle. Is there anything we can do, or I don't even know if you have access to her. Excuse me for interrupting. Sorry about that, but if somebody wants in, We got to let them in.
Right.
So let me ask you this on a personal level. What is your personal opinion about just vaccinations in general? Are you pro, or like, what's your feeling on that? Because I know that, that's a controversial subject for some people. And I just got my first COVID shot. I'm going to be getting my second one soon. And as much as I hate needles, I still embrace the opportunity. But that's, me. So.
Well, vaccines are one of the most important advances in medicine that's occurred in the last few hundred years. It's allowed us to not have to worry about smallpox and polio, all these diseases. My aunt, my father, my uncle all had polio.
Wow.
They were all affected by it. I didn't, because I got the vaccine. And the vaccines have really freed us from some of these horrible diseases. In years past, there's a lot of discussion about smallpox. Smallpox is the only virus that we've ever totally eliminated. The only smallpox that remains is in labs where they keep it just in case they need to make new vaccines or something. But there's no wild smallpox anymore. But it used to be that in a place like in Boston, there was a lot of there's been a recent article that I just read about how about every 18 to 20 years, a ship would come in and someone would have smallpox, and there would be a susceptible population because the new kids were not had not been exposed, and so there would be an epidemic. And the kids, the ones that had smallpox in the past, didn't get sick, but the kids did, and so there would be a cycle. Maybe every 15 to 20 years, they would have another breakout, and vaccines have stopped that. So I think vaccines are really wonderful. There's a few cases where there are reactions that we don't like, but the difference between what happens with the vaccine and what happens with the real disease is a tremendous difference. So I'm really in favor of vaccines, obviously.
So do you vaccinate the mammals at the aquarium? Do they get vaccines?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah?
We vaccinate for a few different diseases. We vaccinate for rabies for any of the animals that are outside. We worry about distemper for animals that are outside if dogs come around. We do a few vaccines. We vaccinate for West Nile virus. West Nile virus affects seals. And that's a problem. It affects people too. And there's a vaccine, there's not a vaccine for people. There's a vaccine, we have a vaccine for Lyme disease now, which is something that people sometimes wish they could get. And it does seem to help. We do see Lyme disease in dogs.
So how does one vaccinate like a seal or a dolphin?
Well,
if you get in the water and like chase them, swimming?
No, you call them up on the shore or wherever, so they'll come up close, and they're trained to hold still, and we can give vaccines. We can do a lot with them. It's training. Or for some animals, we have to do restraint, like with cages and things like that. But all the animals that I work with at the aquarium are trained for various procedures. They well, first of all, they're very hungry. They eat a lot. If you live in cold water, you need a lot of energy. And some of like a basic sea lion may eat 15 to 20 pounds of fish every day.
Wow.
So I don't know how many pounds of fish you could eat, but I couldn't.
0. I hate fish.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's the 20 pounds of fish. That's a lot of fish. So maybe they might want to do something in order to get another fish. So that's makes it easier to train them. And they're also very smart. So they learn what they have to do to get that fish. And they get more. If they don't
do all those guys, who's the smartest?
Pardon me?
Who's the smartest of all those guys at the aquarium?
Well, sea lions, I think.
Yeah? Smarter than dolphins?
Well, I haven't worked with dolphins in a long time. They're pretty smart too.
All right. Guys, do you have any questions? Because this is really fascinating, I think. Anybody? Want to know about penguins or anything cool? No? I can't, I'm, okay. Well, I think that it must be really cool actually hanging out with like, have you actually been able to swim with the dolphins? Because I know that when I used to go to the aquarium, there would be people in the water with the dolphins, I think trainers or whatever, maybe.
Mhm. I have in the past.
Yeah.
Well, the aquarium doesn't have any dolphins now. They have
Oh,
dolphins at the Marine Line in Canada, but the aquarium in Niagara was, which is where I work, was the first place to keep marine mammals and other animals in artificial seawater inland, where you didn't get the ocean water and bring it in. Shad had animals in before Aquarium of Niagara, but they went to the ocean and filled tank cars with seawater and brought the seawater back. So, but the Aquarium of Niagara is too small for dolphins, really, in current practice. So the dolphins all have gone other places. But the sea lions and the seals, and all the sea lions and seals that we have at the aquarium have a story. They were all either born in captivity to animals who couldn't be released, or they were beach stranded and couldn't be released for one reason or another. So they had to have a place to live, and that's why we have them.
I remember that I took a tour there when I was with the Niagara SPCA. They invited me over to hang out, which was awesome. And they told me that they were doing that. The animals that they had there, the seals or sea lions, were very like pretty much rescued,
They're
right?
rescues. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
rescues. Yeah.
but could
Yeah.
not be let back out into the mainstream, and therefore, you know, it wasn't like, because I know a lot of people get upset with some of the places that take the animals and don't let them go, but this is a situation where you can't let them go, right?
Well, like two of our star sea lions were both released twice. They were released twice and ended up on the beach starving again. So
Oh,
at that point, are you going to turn them loose again so that they can go out and starve, or do
yeah.
you keep them, find a home for them?
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool though, that, you know, they were being like sort of fostered
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
way.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
like they aren't really owned. They aren't really owned. They're a public good. There's a lot of rules. You can't just say, "Hey, you want to buy a sea lion?" No, there's all kinds of rules about who can have it and who gets it. And there's a welfare committee that discusses each individual case and determines whether it can be released or if it should go to captivity, or if it's a bad injury or really severe illness, it might have to be euthanized for humane reasons. But yeah, look, we have a seal that was hit by a boat and he's missing a flipper. We have another one that was a seal, a gray seal that was born with defective eyes. She was blind. She couldn't manage on her own. And we got her at the aquarium and we did surgery on her to help her eyes. We couldn't restore her vision, but we could make her eyes less painful. And she's doing well.
wow. So let me ask you this too, because there was a Gary Larson cartoon. Are you familiar with Gary Larson?
Sure.
And it was this picture, this drawing of like 1 bazillion penguins, and they all look exactly alike. And there's one in the middle going, "I gotta be me." So I always thought that was hilarious. But are penguins like, do penguins have different personalities? Because I'm
Oh,
obsessed with penguins.
they have very different personalities.
Yeah.
Recently, yeah, they have very different personality. Recently, it's come out. I think when I was in school that they said that birds really don't smell very much. Well, it turns out that's absolutely not true. And we think that when you see a herd of, or a flock of penguins, how do the baby penguins know who's their parents? How do the parents know where their baby is? It's amazing, and apparently the sense of smell may have something to do with it. We think their calls are real important, but they also have a really strong sense of smell.
Wow. So is there like a smart ass one and a like a, you know, a shy one and a sweet one and
Yeah,
whatever? I don't know.
they're ones that will bite you if you try and look at them, and they're ones that are very cooperative. So there's
I love
definitely
it.
personality. Well, all animals have personalities. Fish have
Right.
personalities.
I know.
Every-
It just
every-
tickles me.
if everybody was, if all of us species were exactly the same, if something bad happened that affected everybody is the same, they'll all be affected. But if they're all a little bit different, then somebody will be able to manage with that new situation. So it's very important to have a variability. That's why they worry about species where there are only a few of them left. And if they don't have enough genetic variation, then they're very susceptible to diseases or climate change or something like that. Whereas if you have a variety, then somebody will be able to get by. It's like with the parvovirus, when it came in, we think that it killed a lot of animals that were very susceptible. And we think it's maybe less likely that animals will die if they get parvovirus now, but it may be because the ones that were most susceptible aren't around anymore. And there's a lot of difference in individual susceptibility. Well, look what's happened with COVID with people. You know, 3 people get it, and one of them you didn't even know, and one of them hardly got sick, and one of them died. So it's really the variation.
And it does also seem to be affecting certain populations more than others as well, right?
The
I
COVID,
mean,
yeah, oh yeah.
yeah.
There's a lot of things like basic health and how close together people have to live or things like that.
Well, that makes sense. And also, I think that a lot of people who are lower wage workers are, but considered essential workers have to continue working those jobs,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can do everything on your computer, and then you don't have to even see anybody else.
Right. And I'm liking life that way, actually. No, I'm kidding. So how many times have you been bitten, doctor? And what is the oddest animal that ever bit you?
Oh, well, I was bitten by a burrfish. They're fish that can blow up. They have spines when they blow up.
Oh, I've seen those. Yeah.
And they bite. We had one that we had an injured eye, so we had to remove the eye. And then after that, he didn't want to eat. And so we were force feeding. We'd try and put a piece of food with a pair of tweezers in there. And once I decided to push it a little farther down, and boom, it took off all the skin on the end of my finger. So the tweezers were a very important part of that project.
I guess so.
But I've never been bitten very many times.
No? I remember I brought a dog to your practice, and I told Dr. Persico it was Dooney. Dooney, the 10-year-old Cairn Terrier that she talked me into taking, and it bit me every day of its life and lived to be 20. Yeah, thanks, Dr. Persico. But I brought him to see her, and I told her that he bites, and she said, oh, that's not a problem. I can handle it. And don't you know, he bit her. that terrible little dog. Yeah. He's cute as all get up. You petted him for 2 seconds, and he became Attila the Hun. Yeah.
It doesn't take much to get them. Once they decide to bite, they're fast.
Yeah, they really are. So are you good at dodging? Is that how you've remained pretty much unbitten all these years?
Well, most dogs give you some warning so you can get out of the way, but most dogs don't bite. Most don't.
My dog will bite you. Doug will bite you if given the right circumstances. He'll just bite you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't even have to do anything to him. He'll just take a chunk out of you. It's great.
Some dogs, I don't know what goes on in their minds, but if you're not doing what they want, then they might bite you.
They do make it known. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, this has been so interesting, I think. And I want to know, is there anything else you'd like to share with us? Because you're kind of like this knowledge guy. You just know a million things, and I really like tapping your brain. Pardon me?
That's because I've been around a long time.
Well, I'm as old as dirt, and I don't know as much as you do, so. But
well, if
any other stories or anything
about whether they should get vaccinated, I'd say get vaccinated.
We should have you do a PSA. That would be great.
Yeah.
But is there any particular story that you have that you think of with fondness about your whole career, all these years of working with animals? Anything that comes to mind that you really, are you still sharing your household with a number of animals too?
Oh yeah, I've got a few. they're being quite quiet tonight, so that's good.
Is
Well,
is
well, a
how
couple of stories. One is there used to be a gentleman. He was a retired engineer, and he would stop at the clinic every morning with his little dog. And the little dog would pee on the reception desk. He'd stop in and say, "Good morning," and the little dog would pee, and then he would go on about his business. And we'd go out with the mop and clean it up. And every morning he came by. I wish I could remember his name, but I don't. So he went on his routine one morning, and as he got down to the corner, just half a block away from the animal hospital, he realized something was wrong. He was having trouble breathing. And so he went to the phone, which was at the corner of, used to be Brand Names was a store. Some people might remember that. Anyway, he went to the phone and he calls his friend to come and get his dog because I think I'm having a heart attack, he said, which he did. He had a heart attack and he died. Did he call for 911, for an ambulance? He called for his friend to come and get his dog.
Aw. Aw.
Yeah.
Okay, that's killer.
And then there was another one where we had this gentleman. He was a retired, I don't know what he was, but anyway, he was a professional person of some sort, and he liked to play golf. He loved to play golf. And he wanted to go to Florida, retire to Florida and play golf where it was warm out there. But he had this old dog, and the old dog he didn't think would be able to handle the heat. So he said, well, when the dog dies, I'm going to go to Florida and play golf. So the old gentleman had a stroke, and the dog, who was an old dog, it was an old golden retriever, a great big dog, followed him to the ambulance and laid down on the grass by the parking. And they put him in the ambulance and drove away. And the dog wouldn't get up. And so they managed to get him on a blanket and they brought him to the animal hospital. We tried all kinds of medications and steroids and all kinds of things, but we couldn't get the dog to get up. And the old gentleman died at the hospital, and we had to put the dog to sleep. But the only thing that was keeping the dog going was the guy.
Wow.
And probably the only thing that was keeping the guy going was walking the dog. So.
Look, you hear about those stories, like a dog that will go and lay at the gravesite of the person or wait endlessly for someone to come back. Even dogs that are being deserted will sit and wait thinking their owner is coming back for them. That just breaks my heart. That's why they're so much better than we are, honestly.
Well, people do the same. People.
Well, I know.
There's a lot of similarities. Really, the whole point is that we're not that much different from dogs. I mean, dogs have personalities. One of the interesting things about dogs compared to all other animals is that dogs look at your eyes. No other animals will, like if you look at a treat over there, the dog will look at the treat. They follow our eyes. And there's a difference, like humans have eyes that are different from other species. Like if you look at my eyes, you can see the white. You can see where I'm looking. And most animals, you can't see the white of their eye. The eye is all brown or whatever color it is. It's dark. And so we tend to look at things like if we were trying to sneak up on something and somebody was watching us, we'd look over and we'd look that way and we'd figure out what to do. And dogs do the same thing. They follow our eyes. They work with us. And that's the only species that does that. I think there's one other species, maybe goats. But anyway, it's like a team effort. So dogs and people have been living together for quite a long time. I mean, dogs can hear better than we can. They hear things in the middle of the night. They can wake us up so that whatever's sneaking up on us won't get us. So we're kind of like a team. So dogs and people have lived together for a long time. So it's not surprising that we'd have similar things. But all animals have personalities and attachments, and there's things that go on between animals that are very similar to friendship, love, whatever you want to call it. There was a thing on Facebook or someplace where there's all these, cute pictures. But anyway, this gentleman had it was in northern India, up in the mountains in India, and he had a cow that he'd bought from somebody, and he heard noises outside, so he turns on his camera, his nighttime camera, to see what was going on, and he sees there's a leopard, a snow leopard, with the cow, and he's watching, and the leopard's not trying to eat the cow. They're like buddies. And so he calls the guy the next day. He finds the guy that he bought the cow from and says, "Oh, well, yeah, that cow, that leopard was an orphan, and she nursed the leopard,
Wow.
and so the leopard comes and visits her at night."
Ah,
So,
what a great story. We see those pictures all the time on Facebook. It'll be like a deer playing with a dog, or an elephant playing with something, or a monkey playing with a kitten. I love those. Those kill me.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's there's not that much really difference between humans and other animals in a lot of respects. Emotional stuff is the basic stuff is all there. They've done things where they take dogs and they train them to sit in an MRI where they can see the functional MRI, where they can see what's going on in different parts of the brain. And they can have the owner say something to the dog, or some stranger say something to the dog. And the parts that light up in this dog are virtually the same as if it was a person in there having their loved one say something to them versus a stranger. It's very similar. And it's like, whoa, we're not that special. I mean, we have language. That's very special. We have thumbs, but there's a lot of stuff that is more basic. That's really not just human. In school, a long time ago, they said you should not anthropomorphize. You should not give human characteristics to animals. Well, no, this is backwards. We should not think that humans have things that animals don't. We build on the things that we got from other creatures that lived before us. But there's similarities, tremendous similarities.
Wow.
So that's what I think.
So, Doctor, do you have some plans about anything, like as far as where you're going to go out in the world and I don't know, do something wonderful with animals, wonderfuler with animals? You're already doing wonderful stuff. Like, do you have an idea, something? Are you going to come be our resident guy at White Whiskers?
Put you
up.
Well, I do a lot with animals. I do a lot right now. I'm actually learning to raise mushrooms is what I'm doing right now.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Do they have personalities as well?
I don't think so.
Eat the wrong one, it'll kill you.
Well, yeah, there are some that are quite dangerous. Yeah, but they don't sneak up on you. Yeah, but it's interesting. Mushrooms are really important. And it's amazing the importance of, like in a forest, the trees are one part of the forest, but the mushrooms and fungal elements underneath are at least as there's at least as much organic matter in the fungal components of a forest as there is in the trees. And
wow.
And the fungi, they found recently that there's communication between the trees. Like if an insect attacks a tree over here, the tree over here will start to make the compounds that might protect it from that insect. And the communication is through the fungal mycelia that goes through the ground between the roots.
Wow.
And they've proved it with a number of really amazing experiments. Like they took some little trees and they put a plastic bag over one tree, and then they squirted some compounds with carbon-14 in there, and they went to the trees around, and it was only a few minutes when the carbon-14 could be detected in the surrounding trees. So there's a communication, a connection.
Wow.
That's one of the things why they think that, like street trees that are just isolated, just a tree, in between in a patch of concrete, doesn't do as well as a tree that's with other trees. There are trees where they've found stumps that have been cut like 50 years before, and the stump is still alive. It has no leaves. It's getting support from the trees around it.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of life is a lot more complicated than it looks like on the surface. Which the more we learn, the less we realize we know.
I'm gonna have to go out and plant another tree now next to the one that's out there.
Right. Needs a friend.
Because he needs a friend.
Right.
I knew that about apple trees. Like apple trees, the only way that they actually create apples is by having other apple trees around, right?
Yeah, some fruit, yeah, they have to have a different one, yeah.
Yeah.
For pollination. And bees.
Look, guys, does anybody have any questions? Anything you want to say? I've been monopolizing this conversation. I'm sorry. Look, Michelle's got one. What are your thoughts on feeding mushrooms to dogs? One's edible for people.
I'd have to look into that. I'm not sure. I know some mushrooms are fine, but I don't know if there's some that aren't. There's some things that dogs can't eat that people can. I think you all know about grapes, probably. Macadamia nuts is one that they shouldn't get. Onions can be a problem sometimes.
Chocolate, right?
Chocolate, yeah, definitely. So I'm not sure. I'll have to say I don't know. Isn't that what Dr. Fauci says? It's better to say you don't know than to make it up.
Bonnie wants to know if dogs can see in the dark.
Dogs don't see as much color as humans. They're more black and white oriented, and they have real sensitive, I think it's rods that don't see color. So they're more sensitive in the dark. The other thing about dogs is that they have the tapetum, which is like a green mirror behind the retina. So when light hits the retina, it passes through and hits the tapetum and comes back through. So there's two chances for the sensory elements to perceive the light. That's why when you look at a dog with the light shining in its eyes, it looks kind of green. Now humans, we don't have that. That's why you get red eye when you get a flash camera or something like that, and you take a picture and the people have the red eye, because we don't have the tapetum. So they can see a lot better in the dark than we do.
So I have a question. I've always heard that dogs don't have any understanding of size, so that a very small dog will attack like a giant dog, which I have one of those. My 5-pounder will go after any pit bull in the neighborhood. And I'm just wondering, is that like actually a true thing? Because that seems to be in her case. She's fearless.
No, I've seen that too. Yeah, it seems like they don't look at how big they are. They think they're a personality that can do what they need to do. So yeah, I don't. Although I had a dog that used to he would bark at dogs, but once he was barking at a big dog, and then he realized, oh my gosh, I'm outside the yard. He ran back inside the gate. I don't know how he was outside. And then he barked through the fence. So he knew enough to, I'll get a fence in between me and that guy. But no, some.
And then I'll be fearless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, some people aren't that scared by his size either.
That's true. That's true. Well, listen, guys, this has been wonderful. Really, thank you so much for your time, Doctor. I know you're a busy man. And like I said, I'll be darkening your doorway with Doug again very soon, because I got to figure this out so I can get a little sleep.
Okay.
You know?
Well, we've got a few things we can try.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I'm glad there's something out there to try, because, man, he's always been very fretful, but he's just a nightmare now.
Yeah.
Guys,
don't hear as well and can't see as well. It gets very confusing.
Well, and he's always been fretful, so I think this is just really scary for him. You know, he doesn't know where he is half the time. He spends a lot of time in corners, and it's really sad. And I don't know what kind of quality of life he has, although he still loves his food. So
that's important.
Yeah. So, my dears, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This was a wonderful, good job, Doctor. Thanks for coming on and hanging out with us.
It was fun.
That was great. Really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Michelle says thank you. Very informative, and then a smiley face.
Oh, good.
I think that was Michelle. Was that Michelle or Maria? Michelle. Okay. All right, my darlings, thank you so much.
Okay,
Have a good evening.
you too.
Take care.
Good night, everyone.